Hello and welcome to the channel. It is November 4th, and today I just want to record a quick video as I have spent the last 48 hours living with, breathing with ChatGPT Search. Every query I've done in Google, I've replicated in ChatGPT Search. I've then also compared a number of them in Bing. I've also sat down and just done a number of random ones. I think I've probably done 250 different searches over the weekend, just trying to compare it, get a feel of really where ChatGPT search is in comparison to Bing and Google in terms of AI and general search products at the moment, and really what kind of direction this is going in search for us for the future. Now, I've got 12 key kind of breakdowns, initial observations that I found over the last 48 hours. Now, obviously, search is ever evolving. So, if you're watching this video a few months in the future, some of these may already have changed. But here's the general gist of what we've got after the first 48 hours of being live. So, first of all, I want to kick off with the indexing and ranking awareness. So, this is kind of the difference between ranking and referencing. So quite a number of ChatGPT searches citations actually include pages that don't rank within the top 100 results of traditional Bing search. This is very similar to what we see with Google AI overviews. In a number of citations and sources in the AI overviews don't rank in the top 100 classical Google searches. This actually helps us understand because obviously Bing is quite a large component of what goes into ChatGPT and a number of other LLMs that generate kind of a generative search experience. But this really does hammer home the importance for indexed actually being in Bing search database and ranked, showing up in positions, trackables over top 100 are two different things. And the same can be said for Google. So this is the difference between ranking and referencing, and also the core difference between indexing and serving. The second thing I want to kind of highlight is that a lot of people have said that Search GPT, ChatGPT Search will potentially just be Bing in another lick of paint, another CSS. ChatGPT Search's responses often differ significantly to what Bing's generative AI output is, as well as what Bing's general classical searches are. The divergence points to use the different retrieval ranking methods and different prioritization logic in ChatGPT Search is very different to what we're seeing in Bing in general ranking there. So this says there's definitely something else at play, different kinds of elements, and necessarily ranking well, being performant, what the search looks like in Bing doesn't mean you're necessarily going to have that same level of performance or impetus within ChatGPT search. The third thing I want to kind of cover over is the fact that you can actually have multiple citations on a single domain within the actual AI overviews themselves, not AI overviews within the ChatGPT search results, but it's going to take some getting used to. A couple of examples of this will say the Telegraph newspaper. They had the same URL cited twice in the same element, or sometimes the same domain. I believe it was the Sun was actually cited with two different URLs from the same domain in the same generative output on ChatGPT search. So this necessarily doesn't mean you're optimizing one page, it's making sure it's the ecosystem, really moving away from that old adage in SEO of having one page ranking for a specific keyword or trying to target one page. It's about creating an overall search experience because this is clearly being understood by the data Bing's processing and then the data ChatGPT is processing and molding together. And the fourth element is that issue of responses vary greatly. So I duplicated a couple of the queries between two different laptops using the same ChatGPT premium account and the same IP addresses. And I actually found that 5 minutes apart, I was getting very different responses for the exact same query, different cited results, different presentation, different text results. So this is actually speaks to the stability of what results are. So there's going to be elements of personalization. I was using the same Chrome login as well, pretty much replicating the same thing. The only difference was the devices and about 20 foot of floor space. So to have that kind of divergence within that time period for the same query is quite interesting and actually could lead to us actually, well, yeah, we can optimize or try to appear as references and citations in the generative results, but the consistency might differ greatly to what we're used to seeing in a traditional search ranking result. The fifth one is just the accuracy around niche queries. So ChatGPT Search actually outperformed Bing and Google on a number of really niche kind of football and rugby related searches I was doing over the weekend. Um, it kind of felt like it had a better grasp of time and not just focusing on different things like authority for publication. A really good example of this, and this is something I actually noticed last week randomly. If you were to Google at the time who the manager of Whitby Town FC was, it would come up with a result talking about Nathan Haslam or Chris Kennedy. So Nathan Haslam was relieved of his post at the start of October, and Chris Kennedy's been appointed assistant. If you did the same search in Bing, it brought forward a gentleman called Lee Bullock, who was an assistant manager 2-ish years ago and now works within the club, but definitely is not the first team manager. But Search GPT actually was correct in actually pulling through, well, Chris Liddell is currently the caretaker. So 3 search engines, 3 very different results, even though one of them is using the same database or using Bing in part. So that's quite interesting there to actually see such divergence between the 3. The 6th one is just touching on local search. So in my opinion, at the moment, ChatGPT Search's local outputs were very inconsistent. The experience as a whole has yet to really lay a finger, I believe, on, or I think, on Bing and Google's local search experiences. A lot of them are lacking in terms of diversity. The logic as to why some of the results have been chosen over the others wasn't very consistent. And on a couple of ones where I was kind of searching for, say, like best SEO agency, for example, it would provide a large number of results, all from the same listicle source. So that listicle source being a pay to play listicle as well, kind of really waters down the trust that you can give that result and the value it has to the user. So local didn't really feel like that's got a, well, that does definitely feel like it's got a long way to go and isn't quite there yet. Number 8 on this list is that the use of UTM tracking links. So it's already been said that links and citations may include a UTM parameter for the source chatgpt.com, which will aid in tracking referral traffic from SearchGPT's interface. Obviously, we know through Looker Studio and through the analytics we can track this as well by adding filters for referral sources. But from my experience of testing all these queries and these probably 300-400 different sources, it was very inconsistent, this parameter being applied. And without actually the prior knowledge that it was something we've spoken about previously, you would have thought it was being triggered somehow by the website being linked to some sort of like referral sniffer, something like that, and then injecting the parameter into the URL on load. Number 9, just wanted to kind of cover over again around citations. The prioritization around GPT responses doesn't seem to have an alignment with ranking senses, but also didn't seem to really have a correlation with what we see in Bing's generative search results either. So even if you're pairing with Bing generative search results, regardless if you're pairing in Bing rankings traditionally, there's an even larger disconnect there happening. So it really is looking at a different playing field. The final 3, I want to go through quite quickly because I appreciate you've been with me now for about 8 minutes. And that's just around media and media results, number 10. So a lot of the chat GPT search results are quite heavily text-based. Some categories I found around especially things like travel and fashion did trigger like a visual carousel element. Interestingly, the links in the visual carousel that I was able to trigger weren't being referenced as citations in the sidebar. And when you clicked on the image, it kind of went full screen. There was more images than what were just being shown in that initial carousel, and they had different links within them anyway. So that could be interesting in tracking reveal and also tracking visibility within those images. Quite often than not, the images didn't really feel like they added anything to it. They just kind of felt a bit like a scrape of header images and log images, and it didn't really feel cohesive in that sense. So that's one interesting one to look at with regards to image and it just being very text-based. And if you're in that kind of travel or e-com space at the moment where visual is quite important, I don't necessarily see this being too impactful to that sector as it stands, apart from very top-level informational gain elements. Number 11 is one of the more interesting ones I actually found. So through my testing across various queries, I actually found citations going to 100% paywall content. So similar to how on Google Discover, you'll see an article you want to click on it. No, I have to pay to access it. It's a quick back. Search GPT was, or ChatGPT Search even, was actually just directly citing completely paywall content and referencing in there. So that's going to be interesting for 2 sides. One, how that leads to user satisfaction. And the second side of that coin is if you are one of these publishers who has paywall content and you want search engines like Bing to be able to access it, but you want people to pay for it, how much of a value of that content is actually then being rendered in the generative results on ChatGPT Search or other LLMs using Bing as a backend, such as like your Metas and other things like that. And finally, the 12th and final point and observation from just spending 48 hours living with ChatGPT Search is just that around its proactive understanding of timely queries. So specifically around this, the one which kind of really sent me down this rabbit hole was the England v Samoa rugby league match on Saturday, which I was fortunate enough to attend. But then, speaking to my family back at home afterwards, my wife made the comment of, "Oh, it was a close game." At which point I asked what the score was, and she referenced the score that she Googled, which was actually from a rugby union game the year previous. So a different sport altogether and a different year. So then I went and did the same searches on Bing and the same searches through ChatGPT Search, and actually found that ChatGPT Search was actually bringing through the timely results for the match that day, and actually understood the timeliness of it, and probably better understood like the QTF principles, the query serves freshness. It kind of felt like Bing and Google for that result, who were still bringing through the rugby union result from the Rugby World Cup. Again, different sport, different year, over a year old. They were more leaning into the common dominant interpretation of a query. And you can kind of understand that given the fact that rugby union is the second largest sport in the UK versus rugby league, which is the 12th. So on a numbers game, there is more chance this is going to happen, but from a timeliness perspective, it didn't kind of feel like that. So my kind of final thoughts is like, ChatGPT is building a unique approach to search. The logic and how it's pulling through results at the moment isn't quite yet abundantly clear, but it's definitely building towards something. I kind of feel it has still got quite a way to go, but for some informational queries, it could actually be more important and powerful at the moment than Bing and Google. How that bleeds into mass market adoption and wider adoption, I'd say, like people like myself, like tech enthusiasts, early adopters, will change differently. But the other way of looking at this for me is this very much feels like ChatGPT Search is the Ask Jeeves, it's the Lycos, it's the early version of this technology going into the masses, of which it will iterate itself, and then further companies will iterate, build on top of it as well with that experience. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Please let me know your experiences of ChatGPT Search. If you like this video and enjoyed these insights, please do like the video. It really helps out the channel in terms of the YouTube algorithm. And if you are new here, please do consider hitting the subscribe button. It would mean a lot. And on this note, thank you very much for watching.